Welcome to the 34th meeting of the 144th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. Our first order of business is the appointment of a presiding officer. I have a motion that Council appoint Councillor Peters as presiding officer for this meeting of Council. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor McCauley. All those in favor? Motion is carried.
Thanks very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I bring regrets from Mayor Joe Preston this evening. Some great news for his worship and his lovely wife, Stephanie, that as we know, Stephanie's been dealing with some health issues. She is home from the hospital as of today. So her and Joe are having a nice evening together to get reacquainted with their little puppy dogs as well, too. So I'm sure that the mayor is watching. I'm just keeping the seat warm for his worship this evening. The last time I sat in this chair was 25 years ago, and it was a great experience from 1991 to 1999, but it is not something that I'm aspiring to move back into. So this is temporary for this evening. So, but it is great to be back. Are there any disclosures of interest in the members? Seeing none, next item, please.
Next item are the minutes. I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on October the 7th, 2024 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Next order of business are presentations. We have one Civic Award presentation to make this evening to the 16 and under St. Thomas Cardinals baseball team. If we could have the team come forward. Thank you. If we have everybody in, the Council and Corporation of the City of St. Thomas proudly present the Sports Team Provincial Award to the 16 and under St. Thomas Cardinals baseball team. The team recently capped off an exceptional season by securing the Ontario Championship at Emsley Field. The team led the regular season with 19 wins and only one loss, followed by an undefeated showing in the London District Baseball Association playoffs. Several more tournament wins led the team to their most grueling challenge yet, the 7-game provincial championships, where they took home the win for St. Thomas. Mayor's success in baseball inspire future generations of athletes and serve as a shining example of what can be achieved through dedication, determination, and teamwork.
Well, congratulations on behalf of Mayor Joe Preston. I have standing in front of me number 31, a Dyke, so I'm assuming that's Sean Dyke's son. And he's taller than me. He's taller than his dad, and I'm standing up here. I'm 6'1", and these guys are under 16, and a number of them are towering over me. But we're champs. We're really proud of the accomplishments that how well you've represented our community. And we wish each and every one of you, whether it's as individuals or as a team, all the best going forward in your pursuit of an excellent game. And on behalf of Mayor Preston and all the members of City Council, we have a certificate that we'd like to present to you. And I'm going to leave these with one of the coaches as well, too. We have the special city pin, which recognizes the contributions that you've made on behalf of our community. So I'm just going to slip around to the front here so I can hold one down. Photo. What? Congratulations. Don't be wearing Converse. What's going on here?
Congratulations.
Here we go, guys. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee is strategic direction and development. First item relates to the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund application. I have a motion that report PRF 2324 relating to the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund application be received for information, and further the council directs staff to apply to the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund as proposed in report PRF 2324. Moved by Councillor Wookey, second by Councillor Clark.
Discussion. Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you so very much. I don't have a problem with pickleball courts. My concern is that there are two phases to the CSRIF funding. Stream 1, the deadline is October 24th. Stream 1 is clearly for repair and rehabilitation. And I'm not sure how new pickleball courts fit this criteria. But if we clearly state that it's Stream 1, I will be fine. But I also hope that this does not perceived by the province to being a Stream 2 for new builds. And if it is not presented properly, the government decides. And that was stated on the webinar that I did attend back in August. Stream 1 is for projects of 150,000 to 1 million. It's very clear. The eligible applicants can only submit one per stream. Stream 2 is for signature new builds, funding up to $10 million. Stream 2 is open now, and applicants will be accepted on an ongoing basis until the funding sources are depleted. So it is my hope that we delay not putting this forward because I do not want it to be perceived as a project under Stream 2, but as a project for Stream 2 to be the community and aquatic facility that the committee and we've been working on for a number of years. So I realize the deadlines, I realize the limitations, et cetera, but I'm hoping that we throw the support behind a future community aquatic facility under this funding opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Other comments from the members? Councillor Wookey.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. So this is a very difficult one for me because I don't know what's going to happen with Stream 2, but I want to support having more recreation facilities for pickleball. So I'm hoping to hear from Mr. Bray about this in terms of, I mean, 150 to 1 million would be perfect for these pickleball courts, but I don't want it to be slotted into, as Councillor Baldwin Sands said, slotted into the Stream 2 by default if it doesn't succeed under Stream 1, and then default us from getting cash for other things. So that's a very big challenge for me because there's a lot of uncertainty there. So I don't know if Mr. Bray would want to talk about how he understands things to be, or, you know, whether we defer this until we have clarity. I don't know. But that's my comment for now. Thank you.
Jeff Bray, please.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. I see this as Stream 2 because it's a new build. It's not a refurb or a renovation. I understand the importance of a community aquatic center, but those projects under Stream 2 have to be tender ready. We are not tender ready for a community aquatic center. We're about 2 steps away. We do not have the land, and we do not have the tender-ready documents that would be required under this funding application.
Councillor Herbert and then Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you, Worship. So let's talk about the community center. Are we anywhere near getting land or anywhere near getting the building on drafted up so we can get involved in some of these things? It's been ongoing for quite a while. So I just wonder,
Yeah.
I know we have a committee, but I just wonder, where are we with that? Is it next year, the year after? Because we don't want to, if we're not anywhere near it, then maybe we should do the pickleball courts. If we're near it, then maybe we shouldn't do it. So I'll leave that up to you to explain that. Thank you.
We don't have the land. As the city manager said at the last council meeting, we are in negotiation. Hopefully I'll have that finalized tomorrow to do, we're doing a refresh of the Parks and Rec master plan. Included within that is a feasibility study, a business plan, and hopefully looking at a renewed property for this facility. So that's going to be tightened up, and we'll have that underway and completed next year. Based on that, I think that will help us reach the next step. To me, the next step is determining the location. We've done the preliminary work with the committee to determine the programming of the facility at a higher level, the size of the facility and the amenities that should be within it, in addition to the programming. So that'll help us with the feasibility study as well. Based on that, the next step would be to hire an architectural consultant. Now, a facility of this, I'm anticipating, and we've talked about this at the committee, is that a consultant would likely cost in the magnitude of about $4 million. And that's to do all the drawings, specifications to a tender ready to go package, so that when funding does become available, we can say we have the site, we have the tender package, we're good to go.
Continue.
Just a follow-up, thank you. So just so it's clear in my mind, you're telling me we're probably a good year away before we even could do something, because we've got those two key things to put in place. So we'd be another year before we could even apply for a grant on it, correct?
At least a year, because
least a year.
we'd need funding to retain an architectural consultant on top of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. We did hear about this funding stream, the CSRIF funding, early in the spring. And around this council table, it was actually Councillor Herbert who brought it to everyone's attention. And the committee worked very, very hard to try to accelerate some of these pieces as quickly as possible. So again, my concern is we are moving at, for example, too slow of a pace for us to be able to capture this stream of funding, because when that $200 million is gone, it will be gone. So I'm very concerned about us missing this opportunity to secure some funding for a new community center for the future of all the St. Thomas citizens.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. The Stream 2 has to have the project completed by March 31st, 2027. And I don't see that we're anywhere near ready to meet that deadline. So I think at this point, it'd be more prudent to invest in the pickleball courts, because that's a project that we can get done in the time frame. We're in the middle of reviewing our rec master plan, and as far as I know, we've never talked at this level, at council level, about what we even want. We had a preliminary study that didn't really tell us much. It told us a whole bunch of things that we already had that people want more of, and was going to cost an astronomical amount of money. So I don't think we need a rec center, but I don't think we're ready for it. I think we're a long way away from knowing what we want and how we can afford it.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. I thank Councillor Clark for bringing that up, because we did meet as a committee back in June and were presented by an organization that has the concepts available to us to move something forward, to accelerate this project where the building time is 13 months as opposed to 5 years with the standard concrete forming that usually goes on. It's called a Sprung Innovation. They are new, they're out of Calgary, and I'm hoping that the committee will take a look and a deeper dive into it. We have, they've extended a hand and said that they will come down and meet with the committee or with all of council, if that is the wish, to help us move this project forward.
Councillor Clark.
Do they also provide information on what the ongoing cost of an overhead would be to run a building this size?
Councillor Baldwin's hands.
I will go back and double check, but yes, there was a lot of information in regards to operating costs to the facility as well.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. So according to the report, Jeff, that you sent out, you said there's no financial impacts associated with this report. So I'm just going to think out of the box here. So what you're saying, if you apply for this, it's going to pay it totally for the whole 5 pickleball courts. There'd be no cost to the city?
Correct.
Because you have the land.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Further comment, question. Comment from the chair to the clerk. I don't know whether it's possible for tonight for a closed session, but I think council needs to have a discussion in a closed session over the land issue for council to understand all the potential options that could be on the table, and perhaps that's something that we could direct staff to look at some of these options, because as was pointed out in the discussion this evening, one of the crucial things is to know where this is going to go, and we don't know right now. We've looked, the committee as that Councillor Baldwin Sands chairs has looked at some options, but I think we need to have that discussion. So I don't know how we can deal with that, Madam Clerk. I guess it would be under land acquisition, which is a closed session item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Were you referring to the future recreational aquatic facility or to the pickleball specifically?
Sorry, I was speaking outside of the report to the discussion around the aquatic facility.
Your Worship, if council directs that some further information be provided to council regarding the land, I understand that that's part of the discussion for next year. I'm sure staff would take that information and gather some more information for council as to the potential locations.
Just is council interested in hearing these site options? No, I'm going to come back to you. So I take that as direction. I saw enough nodding heads, so we'll seek that direction. We'll put that forward to staff. Councillor Herbert, then Councillor McCauley.
Thank you, Worship. But don't we have a motion on the floor? Do we have to defer the motion? Because we made a motion to accept the report. So do we have to defer the motion to go into closed?
No, we're not going. We're speaking. We got on to a sidebar discussion regarding the aquatic center.
Yeah, okay.
The motion on the floor is strictly to deal with the pickleball courts this evening. Either we say yay or nay, or we defer it. But as it's morphed into the aquatic center discussion, I brought that forward. Councillor McCauley.
Noticing that the deadline stream for, so is it stream 1 or stream 2? We're applying for stream 1, and that's October 29th. So an application deadline stream for number 2 is ongoing. But I guess my question is, do we have enough time if it's stream 1 to really have these fulsome, okay, fulsome, so it's number 2. Thank you.
Councillor Wookie.
I'm fully on board with the aquatic center, but I also do we have the time to get what we need to get done in order to be shovel ready? That would be my concern.
Councillor Wookie.
I move to defer.
Is there a seconder for deferral? Councillor Herbert, deferral motion is non-debatable. All those in favor of deferring? 1, 2, 3, 4. You up or down? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion and opposed? Motion carries. matter is deferred. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Unless the members have any further items for strategic direction and development, we'll now.
Any items from the members? If I may, from the chair. Last Thursday was a very smelly, smoky day in downtown St. Thomas. At one point around lunchtime, I could not sit on my back deck because the smell was putrid and the smoke was right to Talbot Street. And the cause of this was a fire at the CN rail yards at the north end of St. Catherine Street. This has been at least the third railway tie fire there this year. Our firefighters have been there on a previous occasion this year to deal with extinguish a fire at a building. I'm becoming really frustrated with CN and the risk that they're putting our firefighters to, the risk that they're putting the neighbors to in the neighborhood, and quite honestly, the risk that they're causing to the environment. A special foam has to be used to deal with these creosote fires. That leachate has to go someplace. And I'm hoping that we can get direction from council that we give staff some good marching orders to proceed and deal with CN to get this site cleaned up. You know, even the fact, you know, it's another issue, but the Barwick Street Bridge not being in commission. Not all of our equipment can get to that site. They have to use laneways on the CN property to get there to extinguish the fire. There's tank cars that are stored in the rail yards, and it's something, if the wind were to change or something were to happen, I would hate to think of a propane car or two going up. So I'm hoping that the chief may come forward and have some comment, but I'm hoping that we can get support from council to direct staff and the fire chief to immediately initiate discussions with CN and get these railway ties cleaned up. I just saw last week there was a fire in Chatham-Kent. There was a large fire within the past month in Wisconsin, which is a recycling yard that CN sends its railway ties to. And it was a significant fire in Wisconsin. So, Chief, I don't know if you have any comment about this and whether you'd be supportive of seeking some direction from CN.
So thanks, Your Worship, to you. So thanks for your support. That day was quite an event, and everybody stepped in. That event took 53 of our employees over 4 hours to extinguish. So if you're thinking of the wages just alone of our employees, fire prevention, the chief, the deputy, 4 EMS were on standby, 2 St. Thomas police officers were there, 2 CN rail police, and then CN workers and Board of Works staff. So just in wages alone for that time, we're over $10,000 in just overtime wages and other people there. And then you look at the foam costs. Councillor Peters, we're lucky with the foam that we have. It is environmentally safe, but it's expensive. So we went through roughly 36 containers of foam. That's $15,000 of our budget that the fire department has to spend for that nuisance. We had to drag, it was labor intensive. We had to drag fire hose from the end of St. Catherine Street here across the tracks, so they had to shut the rail lines down for the day. So we had to drag hose over there because there isn't enough hydrant pressure over on Barwick Street to supply the amount of water that we needed there. So our crews are there. We were doing some procedures. We were drafting out of drafting tanks, trying to deluge it. And we had to call in a backhoe operator. So we were lucky that there was a Board of Works city-employed backhoe operator on duty. If not, we would have called one of our local suppliers, some Lamers or Stripes, who we always use, and the bill starts at $1,000 for them right away too. So those things are expensive, not only the time constraints, but putting the city at risk too for that short period of time because we're tied up trying to get people in. So now we have to staff the city at the same time. So we have to get enough employees in on top of that to make sure the city's safe. So the fire halls were staffed immediately. So those guys were ready to go and then still performed all the duties they had to do. And the small things, you know, equipment that we lost that day that was damaged, brand new tire on the brand new backhoe that the city just purchased. We had to replace the tire. A rail spike went through that. And our brand new truck, we had to replace the tire on the spot. So St. Thomas Tire had to come down and replace them. So we haven't got all the bills. As per your question about putting some pressure, our Chief Fire Prevention Officer, Kim, has reached out to CN's Fire Prevention Office. Didn't even know something like that existed. So they have spoke on the phone. So the nice thing about that, the CN Fire Prevention Officer, he's a former fire chief in the Greater Toronto area. He gets it. He understands it. So he didn't realize that these things were an issue, and also the Barwick Street Bridge. We brought to his attention, we can't, and you mentioned we can't get some of our apparatus, we can't get any of our apparatus over the Barwick Street Bridge. So our means of access to the Barwick Street area is through a gated area through some trees. It's a small path that you probably this wide to get our trucks through. So that's the access for the people on Barwick Street for fire emergency services. It is what it is. We can't go across Barwick Street Bridge with our apparatus. So these are the things that we have been there. Kim was running the stats for the cost of the building that caught fire and the number of times we've been there. So we've been there numerous times, and there's no quick solution to putting out the creosote fire. They burn hot, they burn messy, and it's just a matter of how much foam and water and time you can put into this till you can start tearing it apart. The best case scenario is you start tearing apart and lay the ties out one at a time. It's time consuming, and like as the worship said, Chatham just had this issue too, and there's been other issues. So we are going to work with CN. We hope to do some talks about billing, but that's down the road. But our main concern is the safety of the citizens. Get this cleaned up so this doesn't happen again, and a waste of our resources. This tied up the City of St. Thomas's Fire Department, Police Department, EMS, Board of Works, and others for a whole day, for 4 hours.
Thanks, Chief. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. What danger is there to the community 4 blocks away when that creosote smoke is coming by? Do you evacuate that area too, or you just hope the wind just keeps it going?
So luckily, through your worship to Councillor Herbert, luckily that day we had shifting winds. Majority of the smoke came into town, but because it's dissipated so much into the environment, parts per million aren't that bad. It's the people that are up close. It's our guys working. It's the staff that's on scene, the fire prevention people, the backhoe worker, those people are in there. So we do exposure reports, monitor people. That's why the EMS was on staff. We had EMS there to make sure that everybody was safe. So when it breaks off into, and I'm not going to speak for any biological parts of it, but it breaks down so much per parts per million when it's windy like that, and there's such a big area of St. Thomas to cover.
Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you very much for your response. My question is how you inform the public. How I found out was on your social media page, and it was quick, it was rapid. So could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Through your worship to Councillor Baldwin-Sands. So we go right to our media. Kim and her staff put stuff out on the media. At that point, I think the deputy and I both decided we weren't going to go door to door. At that point, we thought that we had it mostly knocked down. It was just a lot. So with it, you saw the change in colors of the smoke. When it's dark smoke, that means it's free burning, that it's the fire. When it was the white smoke, that means the water had been applied to it, and that's just steam. So a lot of the time, what you saw was steam from the heat from the fire. So at that point, the deputy and I decided we weren't going to go door to door, but the neighbors were most of the people were out, and Councillor Peters also had emailed us at that time that he was, overcome by and had to go into his house. So, and that's what we recommend, close your windows and doors and stay inside if you're in that area. So Kim tries to reach out as best she can, but her resources were limited also at that point.
Thanks, Chief. I thought white smoke and black smoke elected the Pope, but anyway. Thanks, Chief. I think you can take that as direction from council. It sounds like you've already initiated the process, but anything that we can do as a council and staff to support you and your team's efforts at getting CN to address this long-term, be assured we're here for you.
Thanks, Your Worship, and
Thanks.
Council for your support.
Thank you. Next item, please. Or sorry, any other items of new business for this committee? Seeing none, next item, please, Madam Clerk.
We'll move into community engagement and services. First item relates to a request for a road closure for the Remembrance Day service. I have a motion that report ES 4524 relating to Remembrance Day service road closure request be received for information. And further, the council approved the temporary closure of Moore Street between Talbot Street to Center Street from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Monday, November the 11th, 2024 to allow for the Remembrance Day service. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Next item, please.
Your Worship, unless there are any further items from the members for this committee. And seeing none, we'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to winter overnight parking review. Have motion that report ES 4424 relating to the winter overnight parking review be received for information, and further that council endorse the overnight parking permit policy included as attachment 1 to report ES 4424, and further that council authorize the suspension of overnight parking enforcement on December 25th, 26th, 2024 and January 1st, 2025. And further, the council support piloting a lower driveway boulevard parking program included as attachment 2 to report ES 4424 for a period of 2 years. And further, that council direct that a bylaw be prepared for its consideration to amend the traffic and parking bylaw 45-89 accordingly. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments from the members? Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. So for the members of the public that are watching, listening in tonight, this report covered several different elements of overnight parking. And I have comments about a few different things. And one is about the lower boulevard. So the point there being, if anybody, it's between where the sidewalk crosses your property and the road, you can park a vehicle parallel to the road, perpendicular to the other cars in the driveway, if there's room to do so. As part of this, it's I will call it a neighbor survey. It seems to me is being encouraged to canvass your neighbors. I'd kind of like us to do away with that for several different reasons in terms of people getting along with their neighbors and everything like that. Like I think that if it has the space, then I would forego the neighbor survey as an added piece of, I guess you want to call it bureaucracy that will disincentivize people to do this. And we want them to do this because it gets them off the roads. So that's one point. Secondly, for seasonal overnight parking, the applicant must be the registered owner of the residential property. I would like that to be extended to the tenants, because a lot of times in the older part of St. Thomas, it's not the owner that cares at all about that at all. You know what I mean? That's something that the tenants would care about. And what if the tenant gets a vehicle when they didn't have a vehicle before? So I think in many ways, we want this to be tenant friendly and addressed to tenants, especially in the older part of St. Thomas, where on-street parking is exactly the challenge versus other neighborhoods. The last thing I want to say is that as time goes on and we grow as a city and we get more technological capacity, what I'm looking forward to do, and Rose put this in the report, that we're not there yet in terms of 24/7 bylaw enforcement, in terms of the capacity to do this. But because we live in kind of the warmer part of Canada, and with climate change, we're not having as many weather events. I would like to see us go to a point where this is simply a weather event related restriction on parking in total. And I mean, I don't want to compare this to Amber Alerts, but like in terms of alerts, we could have everybody's phone numbers and they get a text saying, get your vehicle off the road. So that's what I'm hoping we'll have 5 years from now. So I'm supportive of this report, but I'd like to see the survey gone for the lower boulevard part. And I'd like to see the applicant be either the owner or the tenant. And I'm looking forward to a day when we don't have to monitor this. It's just a text goes out, an alert, and you get your car off the street wherever you can park it to clear this out for the 7 or 8 nights a winter that I think we are going to need this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. The part that interested me was on the Lower Boulevard where Councillor Wookey was. It's a 2-year pilot program. And obviously there'd have to be a lot of communication, and you suggest that there. But what happens if 50% of the people you communicate say, hey, no, I don't really want that. I don't think we need it. I'm not going to go for it. So what do? Do you just automatically, it automatically goes into effect, a 2-year program? Doesn't matter what they say, even though they're saying they don't like it? So that's my question.
Other comments from the members? Kevin Delebek, some comments to the questions and anything regarding the report?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to members of council. The reason for the applicant to survey the rest of the residents on the street is to provide that exact opportunity, because not every resident may feel that they want to have that program. So foregoing that basically means that if one person does, the whole street does. And now you may end up in having neighbor feuds, but you are going to increase the workload for bylaw enforcement because now I'm going to have to go out there on a property by property basis and say, oh, no, you're not approved, but you are. It's way too complicated to administer. We need to apply it on a street by street basis if we're going to do a pilot program at all. It makes it a little bit easier to administer, and then at least we know that the street is in support of doing so in the first place. The other piece I wanted just to quickly highlight is the recommendation is to forego enforcement on the 25th, 26th, and the 1st of every year, not just in 2024 and 2025. The other piece I think I heard was about opening up the overnight street parking policy or permits to tenants. And I guess my question is, we need to clarify if council feels that municipalities have a role to play in solving private parking issues or not. The city's zoning bylaw requires 1 parking space per additional residential unit. The unfortunate piece is that this requirement is only satisfied if that additional residential unit goes through the proper process and is vetted by the building permit process to make sure that it complies with applicable law. But even despite compliance with the zoning and the building code, you may have a situation where you have 2 tenants in one rental unit that have 2 vehicles, and they want to have permits. So how am I supposed to know, as administration, that they truly reside there? They could give me their bill, I suppose, but I'm not going to know for sure. Now, let's say I've got 4 or 5 residential units in one building, and I'm giving them to all the tenants. How much on-street parking space is there? I know the older parts of town, I don't think you're going to get more than 2 in front of each lot. They are wider than the newer lots, but you're not going to get much more than 2 per property before you start infringing upon the driveway or your neighbor's property. And what if the other neighbor also needs parking permits on the street? And then the next one beside you. So at some point in time, if we continue to issue them to tenants, we're going to overload the ability to park on the street. There's just going to be no space. So again, that comes back to the question, is it the municipality's role to solve private parking issues? The city has recognized that some properties have geometrical situations that do require some type of relief. And council has implemented this overnight parking policy since 1996. So they've recognized this. So that's kind of the crux that we're at on this particular topic. If we have intensification, which I think we all want in our downtown core, and then in our older parts of the city, and if this becomes a larger issue, this is a larger policy issue than what the overnight parking permit policy is meant to address. So fortunately, there is a parking management strategy that is included as part of the 2025 capital budget submission to help look at some of these pieces. But for now, that's what this program is intended to do, is for those properties that physically cannot get parking of 2 vehicles off-street to issue them an overnight parking permit so that they can park on the street. Even if it snows, they're allowed to stay on the street. Unlike the weather-based event programs that we've seen in other municipalities, they still have to get off the street when they call that event. So you still have the same issue of where are you going to park during that winter event. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Direction, you want the motion reread? Are we looking at amending? I'm just going to speak from the chair. I'm supportive of moving forward, but I personally don't like the boulevard idea. I think it's going to open up a can of worms that someone is going to want this year round now. And we've already dealing with one on a deferred basis from Mitchell Street. So I think if we just open the door a little crack, it's going to lead to a huge nightmare for us. But Anyway, there being no further questions from the members, all those in favor of the report? Opposed? It's carried. Next item, please.
Next item relates to the procurement strategy for the water reclamation facility. I have a motion that report ID 3524 relating to the water reclamation facility 2 procurement strategy be received for information, and further that council endorse the recommended progressive design build procurement strategy. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions from the members? Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to ask Pat if he could just come up and kind of explain this to the general public about, because this is important, and it might sound complicated, but it's not too complicated, but I want to hear from the expert.
No, thanks, Councillor Wookie, and Patrick Ankart, thanks very much, because I think, as you pointed out in your report, this is probably one of the most important decisions and biggest decisions that this council is going to make going forward. So please give us a brief overview.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, through your worship, to members of council. So progressive design build, it really came out of trying to do large, complicated, complex projects, how we used to do them and how we always do them. And things would go over budget, they would go over schedule, they wouldn't be successful. A recent example that you may recall is Collingwood's drinking water system. There's estimates and lots of great work done, but the estimates were about half of where the construction value actually came into. So we don't want that to happen with our project. What progressive design build does is it allows contractors to be at the table right away. So during that design phase. So things like, the length of a concrete form or certain pumps or blowers, the manufacturers that supply those, they may have recommendations and really good ideas that you can incorporate right away into the design. And so that's the advantage that you get out of the progressive design build, is that you have those folks at the table right away. You also get a contractor that will then give you really good estimates. So right away, and as you go through the design, the contractor is there and they're giving you estimates. So you have cost surety in terms of what you want and how much it is going to cost. If we find there's a need to rescope the project, then we can do that. And we can know that if we remove certain things, then these are the budget impacts. So it really, really allows you to maintain really good cost controls and schedule as well. So having that, again, that contractor, that person that's built 5 or 10 of these over their career, they know how long certain parts take to order in. They say, Pat, you need to order in the UV system right away because that takes, 2 years. So this is something that we have to get. So you get that knowledge and they're at the table. Compared to how we would usually procure construction, which is in a traditional design bid build, we have really good knowledge in-house because we do those all the time. Something like this, you want that contractor at the table right there because they've built these their whole career. And so that it really allows you to have an increased chance of a really, really successful project.
Thanks, Patrick. Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. I had the chance to talk to Patrick about this in some more detail. And what I liked about this was that it's a reality check. It's a reality check before you get to the end of the point where you have to make some big decisions. So you get reality checked along the way, and then you can decide to go with that contractor or go with somebody else. So this is not as simple as sole sourcing. It's not really a sole sourcing thing. It's we pick somebody to help us out, and in the end, they can give us a price and build it, or we go out to the market, which I think is very clever. It's a very clever way of doing this. And for me, what I think about this is the best chance of us being like on time, on budget, and having a project that can actually be built. And for us as a city, with what's happening with Yarmouth Yards, we need to do this right. And we need to do it as quickly as possible. That's just the reality that we're facing. So I'm pleased to support this. It seems like a very, I hate to say foolproof because things can go wrong, but this is the least chance of something big going wrong and leading us to, as Patrick said, like doubling the price on something. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks. Part of the literature talks about off-ramps and safeguards at the back end in terms of financial protections. And I'm just wondering, since it's the first time that we'll be using this process, who provides us with the legal advice to make sure that we've got those protections in place?
It's a great question. So what we're thinking for the initial design stage is that we would keep it to a design-oriented contract, and so there wouldn't be any building involved whatsoever. So do that all the time. We have lots of great templates. For the second part, there's lots of great templates out there, and there's also lots of great lawyers that'll help you with templates, and all of the contractors also have certain clauses and templates that they like to use and see as well. So what I would propose is that whoever that successful team is, we will work with you on whatever template you like. It's the best one you've used it before, but we also will have our own legal team review those certain clauses that they like to see and don't like to see. Contractors always tell me, like, Pat, insurance and bonding are something that really are a challenge for us sometimes when departments put out a very high value. So that'd be something where we can take that away and maybe add value by not having it as a number that we don't necessarily need.
Council Clerk?
Just as a supplementary, I'm for this. I think it's progressive, and I think it'll help us save money and save time. My only worry was you read about some, Metrolinx and some of the contracts there and where that infighting happens when things break down. And that's my concern, but make sure that we build in enough protections for ourselves as we go forward.
Yeah, through your worship, there's definitely a behavioral component to all of these large projects, and we'll be closely monitoring that. And if we feel there is a team member that isn't the right fit, then we have we'll write in that they can be removed and someone with equivalent experience put into them. I think the Metrolinx and the IOs of the world, they use design build, which is a little bit different than the progressive design build. So it's just where you split it into stages of stage one design, you do it together, you have a price, and then you can or cannot go to construction depending on what you think. Whereas they're more towards the design build, where you enter a contract and you're with that person until the end.
Further discussion from members? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Patrick. Next item, please.
Next item relates to the 2024 Drinking Water Quality Management System Management Review. I have a motion that report ES 4324 relating to the management review be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Macaulay.
Questions or comments from the members? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. The minute meetings were very interesting to read. And I actually asked this question a few years ago. Mr. Lawrence gave a really good response to it. I just wondered, is this something you have to review every so often when something really disastrous happens to your water? What's the process? How do you get the ball rolling? And is it the same process that Mr. Lawrence gave to us 3 years ago? Or is it something that you review to communicate it to the public?
Kevin.
Through the chair to Councillor Herbert, the management review meeting is a requirement to occur at least on an annual basis, legislatively required. I think you might be referring to, like, if there's a boil water advisory in effect. Yeah, so those, we work in consultation with the public health unit and the MECP to help determine the scale of those. You'll notice in the meeting minutes, there were some that were very isolated to the construction project for a building. So we would just issue that just for the residents of that building. But as we recently, and you'll see that in the next management meeting minutes of the one that occurred at the end of Station Street earlier this year, was a little bit larger scale. And so we work with our colleagues at those other agencies to help scope where we need to issue the advisory and then add some caution to that as well. One of the great things about building a communication strategy is going to be able to help deliver that message more effectively in the future.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, I remember when I took the water course through Nigel Bellchamber, he was very adamant that it's very important that this process has to be in place and reviewed every so often, because if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as I gave to Mr. Lawrence, he went step by step how it works. Somebody calls something, and it really worked well. I just was just making sure it's reviewed every so often because things changes all the time. So anyway, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
Your worship, unless there are any further items for this committee, we'll now move into corporate governance and administration. First item relates to budget monitoring. I have a motion that report TR 1524 relating to budget monitoring be received for information. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments from the members? Councillor Wookie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just hoping that the treasurer can just give a real brief outline of some of the reasoning that was in the report for why we are on the balance sheet where we are right now.
Dan Sheridan, please.
Thank you, through you. Overall, the determination between a surplus and a deficit is pretty small in the big scheme of things. Like this, the projected deficit is less than about 0.2% of our budget, right? So there's a few things can not happen the way we expect. So there in many different departments things didn't end up the way estimated. So there's no one real reason why it happened, but it's just the way it was at the end of the day. And can I just say too, that's expected. There's a lot of things could happen between now and then. It may end up on the other side of the line. I don't know yet.
Councillor Wookie.
Just supplementary that I just want to stress to the public that it seems to me from reading the report, and I might have been wrong, is that a lot of this had to do with the amount going to a public health unit that was way over what we budgeted for. And so if in my mind, if we take that out of there, everything's going fine. And that was kind of my take on it. But again, I think I'm the assistant treasurer, but I'm not.
You're not a planner or an engineer either. Councillor Clark.
I'm just wondering whether or not we could get this report sooner, like it's June's results, and whether in the future, whether it's a staffing issue or whether it's a technology issue, whether or not we could, we could get it, say, in August.
Dan, is that possible? Because I think I know where Councillor Clark's coming from. It gives us a chance as a council to, if we have to make some adjustments ourselves. So, because we're pretty late into the year now. So is there any chance that we can get this earlier in the future?
Yeah, there's always a chance. Like we can do it, but yeah, this year was especially busy. You're kind of limited unless we change service levels of what we can do to save money. Yeah, we always try to do it as early as we can, but there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we just ask that you endeavor to get it to us as quick as possible in the future. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk.
Your worship, unless there are any further items for this committee, council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
No reports of committees or petitions and communications this evening. Next, we move into unfinished or new business of council. If there are any items from the members.
Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. I would like to provide an update about the Health Recruitment Committee, and we have just rolled out the Health Recruitment Partnership Scholarships. They have been posted on the city's website. The scholarship awards $1,000 per year for up to 10 individuals who are enrolled in medical school accredited with the Medical Council of Canada through the College of Family Physicians of Canada, with emphasis placed on the pursuit of a career as a physician in family medicine. The applications will be closed on November the 28th at 4:30 p.m. And then we will go under review by the Health Recruitment Committee. For myself, I am one of the representatives and Councillor McCulley is the other. So I'm very glad to provide that update to all members of council to get the word out that we are supporting our medical students. If they're ready to come back and want to see them, we would love to see them on a continual basis. And the scholarship is one opportunity that we use in order to keep in contact with our medical students. And I defer to Councillor McCulley if there's anything that I had missed.
Not that you missed it, but we did make a slight change to the application process this year, where if there were students that are from St. Thomas Elgin County, but attending school outside of Canada, they weren't able to apply, and that has been changed for this year.
Great. Well, thank you to the two of you. We, on behalf of all of us on council, we appreciate the work and time that you put into this most important project. Thanks. Seeing no further items, Madam Clerk.
We'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to Council and Committee of the Whole, and read a second time.
Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on October the 15th, 2024.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 1-000-725-093 Ontario, Inc. This relates to a residential loan agreement under the Community Improvement Program for the property at 40 Wellington Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Doug Terry Limited. This relates to Miller's Pond Phase 5, 66 lots for single detached dwellings and 16 lots for semi-detached dwellings.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Your Worship, I rise and report the successful passing of 3 bylaws.
Thanks, Councillor Wookie.
I have a motion by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the report of Council and Committee of the Whole on the 3 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next order of business is public notice. 2 notices this evening. First, that a public meeting will be held on November 4th, 2024 at 6 p.m. regarding the proposed 2025 sewage service rates. And secondly, that a public meeting be held on the same evening, November the 4th at 6 p.m. regarding the proposed 2025 water rates, fees, and charges. No notices of motion this evening,
Madam
Your
Clerk,
Worship.
Madam Clerk.
Sorry.
As I said earlier, it's been a long time, 25 years since I had the opportunity to sit in this chair, and it's been a great evening to be back in it tonight, but it's I'm kept it warm for for His Worship, Joe Preston, and I look forward to him coming back in. But one of the things I just wanted to point out, at the meetings, the mayor always wears the chain of office, and it's the symbol of the mayor's authority as mayor. I didn't want to wear it this evening because I'm not the mayor. He's the mayor. There's a title that goes with us, Your Worship, former Mayor Kohler, Your Worship Peters, etc. And that's courtesy of former Mayor Don Stokes. It's something that's unique to St. Thomas that we're allowed in St. Thomas to call former mayors Your Worship. So it's always been a fun thing. But the chain of office was presented to the city in 1967 as a centennial gift from the local JC's Club. It depicts both coat of arms of the city on the front, the current coat of arms that was adopted in 1973, and then on the rear, the original coat of arms, and our motto being strength through progress at the time. His Worship, Mayor Kohler and myself were both checking to ensure that our names were on the chain of office, because there's little bands on the chain that have all the mayors that have served since 1967. And the chain itself depicts a lot of the history and the heritage of the city. There's a rose on here for the Flower City. We were known as the Flower City for a number of years. There's a steam locomotive denoting our railway connections, our long rail connection. The city crest, the old St. Thomas Church, constructed 1822-24. The Centennial logo, of course, on it. The medical symbol, the first medical school in Upper Canada, was established here actually 200 years ago. It was located here in St. Thomas. And at the back, there's a little plaque that says presented in 1967. Mayor Vince Barry was the first mayor to wear this. But anyway, I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to give you a little history lesson. And for the viewers at home who wonder, what is that? And it is fairly heavy. I will say that too. I used to go tour with grade 5 students, and they were always amazed at how heavy this chain is, but that goes with the burden that you carry in this office, and we know Mayor Preston carries it really well for us. So anyway, brief history for you. And Madam Clerk, it's back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, there is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality by the province of Ontario and a personal matter about an identifiable individual. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
And just before we deal with the motion, and just remind the public that this will be the end of what you will be watching this evening. We will proceed into our closed session. At the end of that closed session, we will come back into open session to approve the matters that we have dealt with in the closed session, and then we will adjourn for the evening. So if you've tuned in tonight, thanks for joining us. And with that,
Sorry, Your Worship, just as a reminder that immediately following the passage of this motion, there is a public meeting scheduled.
So we'll adjourn after we pass this motion, deal with the public meeting matter, and then we'll return back into closed session. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, at this time, have motion to rise from closed session. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Next item, please.
The remaining item is bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the following bylaw. Sorry, to bring in the one bylaw. Bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to an agreement between the city and His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Have motion by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the bylaw be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? It's carried.
Bylaw, please.
The fourth bylaw for this evening is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. This relates to Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement. Questions
or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Your Worship, I rise and report the successful passing of another bylaw.
Thank you.
I have a motion by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the fourth bylaw be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Your Worship, there being no further items in open session, I now have a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. We are adjourned.